65% of businesses fail within 10 years. It's not because the founder is incapable or that the market isn't there. It's usually because the person running the business never fixed the habits that keep them poor. I built 3 7-figure businesses and I consult with hundreds of business owners every single month. And there are 6 habits that I have found that keep business owners poor and hold them back from scaling their business. Habit number 1 is being busy without being effective. So a company is 90 days from bankruptcy. They have over 350 products. They're doing printers, cameras, PDAs, dozens of computer models. And it's not what the customers ask for. They're just trying to do everything to compete. They're selling to everyone and they don't realize it. So a man walks back into the company. He co-founded this company 12 years ago. He got fired from the company by the board. And now they're calling him back because they don't know what to do and nobody else can save it. His first week back, he sits with the product review team and asks them one question. Which one of these products do I tell my friends to buy? The team couldn't answer. So in the next few months, he killed 70% of the product line, 350 products all the way down to 10. He shut down entire divisions. Engineers had spent years working on a project that was canceled in a single afternoon. The board thought that he lost his mind. The press called him reckless. And this man was Steve Jobs. And he saved Apple at that time because Apple wasn't failing because of the bad engineers. They weren't failing because of the market. They were failing because they were too busy. They were trying to do everything. They were trying to be everything to everyone. And this is a pattern that I see with almost every business owner that I consult. And I've experienced this myself where you're working 12, 14, 16-hour days. You have your hand in everything. And at the end of the day, you collapse and then you do it again. You're busy, but you're not making any money. Because the average entrepreneur statistically spends 68% of their day just in operations and only 32% on strategic work. And 55% are working over 50 hours a week. And at least 70% of them are burned out. There's all this effort and energy being spent, but there's nothing to show for it. There's a great quote by Peter Drucker. He says, "There's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." So you're not inefficient. You're efficient at the wrong things. You're executing on tasks that shouldn't exist on your calendar in the first place. This is something that I wrote back in 2025 as I was processing things, and it keeps coming up. The goal is not to do more without depth. It's to do less with depth. And Steve Jobs understood this because he cut 340 products. He wasn't giving up. He was taking that focus, right? Because energy is finite. He was taking the energy that Apple had and focusing it on the few things that mattered and let everything else be ignored. Because to grow, you need to eliminate. You have to return your attention to the bare minimum, and then you can add with intention. The hardest thing that I see for most business owners is to do less. But the goal is when you do less, you do it with depth. The second habit is focusing on everything but lead generation and sales. A woman spends 7 years selling fax machines door to door. Every morning, she opens the phone book and cold calls. 8 a.m., 5 p.m. She gets a door slammed on her, cards ripped up in front of her face. She's also been escorted out by the police. And she does this for 7 years. Then she goes out and she creates a product. It's a footless pantyhose. She has $5,000 in savings, no connections in fashion or retail or manufacturing. And she cold calls, the skill set that she has, every hosiery manufacturer that she can find. Every single one says no. Nobody takes her seriously because she has no experience. She has no funding. She has no background, right? This is her first time being in the industry, but persistence, she keeps calling. One manufacturer finally agrees to make her product. Not because the pitch was convincing, it's because his daughter told him that he should. Then she takes that same skill of cold calling, she starts cold calling buyers. And she gets a meeting with Neiman Marcus and she brings the product in a Ziploc bag. She pulls the buyer into the bathroom and shows her the before and after. And Neiman Marcus places an order. There's no PR firm, there's no marketing budget, there's no brand strategy, there's no ad spend. She just picked up the phone and sold. Her name is Sarah Blakely. And Spanx went on to become a $1 billion company. And the entire thing started the same way that she spent 7 years developing her skill set of cold calling, selling fax machines. She picked up the phone, she called somebody, and she continued to do that over and over. And that's lead generation. It's one of the most important things that most business owners refuse to do. They want to pawn it off to an agency for rev share. They want to have somebody else build it for them and run it for them. Lead gen and sales is the lifeline of your business. And when I ask business owners why their revenue is down, and I talk to many of these people on a weekly basis, they're focusing on their website, they're filming content, they're tweaking their CRM, they're meeting with brand agencies. And then I ask them, how many people did you reach out to this week about buying from? The answer is none. There's a study that Salesforce did that found that most sales reps spend 28% of their week actually selling. For business owners, 68% of their time goes to day-to-day operations. And lead gen is the last thing that they worry about when it's the first thing that you should worry about. 42% of startups say that they failed not because of the market needs, it's because they didn't have enough pipeline. Nobody was putting an offer in front of people to find out if that product is going to work. There's a great quote by Alex Hormozi to kind of TLDR this. Having lots of leads makes it hard to be poor. Seth Godin also wrote about this in his book, The Dip. A woodpecker can tap 20 times on 1,000 trees and get nowhere but stay busy. Or he can tap 20,000 times on one tree and get dinner. And that's the difference, because most business owners are like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. You're doing everything, a new funnel, new platform, new strategy, new CRM. You're busy, but you're still broke. And so all Sara Blakely did was focus on the things that mattered. She called manufacturers and she called buyers. That's all she had to do. And that was the simple focus. It goes back to habit number 1, which is doing less, eliminating, and doing habit number 2, which is focusing on sales and marketing. And Naval says this really well. If you learn to sell and you learn to build, and if you can do both, you'll be unstoppable. Habit number 3 is making business decisions from emotions. There's a man who's standing on stage in front of thousands of employees. He's 39, super confident the way that he fills a room. He says, I am WeWork. He told investors that he's going to become the first trillionaire. He called himself the greatest real estate mind in the world. And he's building a co-working company to a $47 billion evaluation in less than 10 years. But when the financials go public, 1.9 billion in losses of 1.8 billion in revenue. He's been cashing out stock options while asking employees to sacrifice their pay. He's been taking a personal loan from the company that he runs. He's acquiring buildings and leasing them back to WeWork for profit. And he's trying to trademark the word we and charging his company $5.9 million for it. Right? His name is Adam Neumann, and the company that he built and destroyed is WeWork. And this is an extreme case, but the pattern that I noticed that's not really extreme. You see it everywhere, right? I see it on a monthly basis. There was a research done at Rice University where they studied traders, and they found that people in a good mood made worse decisions. They lost more money. They took bigger risks. It's not because they were careless. It's because their emotions told them a story that the data didn't support. When you're emotional, let's say you're angry, it makes you rush, it makes you make rash decisions. You do it with your significant other. You could do it with your health. If you're in a stressful situation, you'll order out. And the most dangerous emotion in business can be confidence. It makes you stop asking questions. It makes you stop looking at data, right? We all have. Everybody does this. We kept a team member way too long because the conversation was uncomfortable. You launched something new because the current offer was boring. You cut the prices because one prospect pushed back. That was N equals 1, not a great sample size. Majority of the decisions that most people make are not strategic. They're all emotional. We consider them as business moves, but they're really not. And I wrote about this in 2021. Emotional decisions require a lot of emotional pain to undo. So the more emotional the decision, the more emotionally draining undoing it becomes. The year that I started tracking my triggers, my emotional triggers, I recorded what made me reactive, because there's a space between what you feel and the reaction that you have. And as soon as you can create that space, that's where you can use data to regulate your emotions. And so when I started recognizing my patterns, then I said, great, what does the data show? What is evidence? What is fact rather than feeling? Keith Cunningham, the author of Road Less Stupid, he says, I misdiagnosed the problem and I asked the wrong questions and got tactical answers. Therefore, I built a machine for the problem that doesn't even exist. And that's what emotional decisions make you do. You end up building a business solving emotional problems, or building a business that isn't even doing the right thing because you're not executing on the right decisions. And so the foundation to how we're solving problems and how you're building a business always has to be based off of data, not your feelings. Nicole LePera talks about this. She called this the Band-Aid model. We look at the emotions on a surface level. We never go into the underlying cause of this. That's why business, or building a business, is one of the greatest personal development tools that you can ever have. So the fix is not to kill your emotions, but it's to pause between feeling and action. Before you move, you want to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this real? What's the data to support this? And if I take this action, what's the second, third, fourth level order of consequence that'll happen? Because the goal would be to spend 99% of the time figuring out, is this even a problem? And then 1% of the energy actually solving it. Habit number 4 is letting your expenses chase your income. At 20 years old, he's one of the youngest heavyweight champions in boxing history. By 30, he's made over $400 million. He owns mansions. He's got luxury cars. He's got Bengal tigers. He's got a staff of 100 people, bodyguards. He doesn't know any people. He's got this massive entourage. Money's coming in faster than he can think about it, so he never thinks about it. And by 2003, he files for bankruptcy because he's $23 million in debt. This guy's name is Mike Tyson. And people hear the story and think, okay, this might just be a reckless athlete. But in reality, all of us possess these qualities and tendencies. And I see this all the time because business owners hit their first big year. Maybe it's $500,000 in profit. Maybe it's $1 million in profit. After years of grinding, you upgrade your lifestyle. You don't keep doing the things that got you there. You take the foot off the pedal. Then something happens, a slow quarter hits. Your emotions get in the way. You get scrambled. Not because you didn't make money, it's because your lifestyle expanded and now all that money that you had instead of reserves, you now have to put it towards your expensive lifestyle. 75% of small businesses say that rising cost is their top financial challenge, and 23% of businesses that close, and the reason for that was lack of capital, because most of them had the capital, they either spent it on stupid stuff. There's a framework that I use with my clients. There's money problems and freedom problems. A money problem is very straightforward. You're in financial deficit, you're spending more than you make, and the math just doesn't work. What most people want to do is they want to solve the money problem and the freedom problem first. And most business owners, they're making pretty good money, but what they do is they build a life that requires every dollar rather than living below their means. So if you can live below your means and be able to stack cash at the same time, right? Because then you can pay for things that allow you to open up your time to focus on things that matter the most. Because Mike Tyson didn't go broke because the $400 million wasn't enough. He went broke because no amount of money would have been enough. The spending was the poor habit that he had. There's a great quote by Keith Cunningham. The price for entrepreneurial success is discipline and structure. And there's no passive path to success at anything, especially finances and wealth. Habit number 5 is not understanding the power of recruiting. An old man, he's in a baseball cap. He's walking the floors of one of his stores that he owns. He's not in an office. He's in the aisles. He's talking to the cashiers by name. He's asking the stockers about their families. He's shaking hands with the part-time workers who started last week. His competitors are spending millions on consultants and strategy firms, yet he's spending his mornings in the break room with his employees. And when asked what helps him get up at night, he doesn't say competition. He doesn't say margins. He doesn't say supply chain. He says he's worried about failing his people. And this guy's name is Sam Walton. He built the largest retailer on planet Earth, and his biggest fear was failing to motivate and take care of our associates. If you want a successful business, your people must feel that you are working for them, not that they're working for you. This man built $1 trillion company worrying about his most valuable asset, not the products, but his people. And most business owners, what they see is they see hiring backwards. They treat it as a cost center. It's something that you do when you're drowning, a necessary evil. But that's actually the opposite. Not hiring the right person is the real expense, because a bad hire costs an average of $17,000. And an unfulfilled position, you're bleeding $500 a day because of lost output. After 42 days of not having somebody in a position, you're losing $22,000. So 89% of bad hires fail because of attitude and behavior, not skill. And most business owners aren't even screening for the right thing. When they're in pain, they hire rather than actually continuously building a recruitment pipeline where you can get people in. Because the difference between a small business and a big business is how many A players that they have. And to find an A player, you're going to have to do 350 to 400 interviews. It's just like lead gen and sales. Alex Hormozi has a great quote. He says, the difference between small businesses and big businesses is how many A players that they have. You have to treat recruiting just like you treat lead gen and sales, which is a pipeline. And from our data of recruiting talented salespeople and team members, we'll do 350 to 400 interviews before we find 3 to 5 A players for an organization. Habit number 6, forcing instead of flowing. There's a young man who comes to America. He's got $100 in his pocket, and he opens up a martial arts school in Seattle. And he teaches everyone who walks through the door, Chinese, Japanese, black, white, it doesn't matter. He needs to make money. And what he's trying to do for him internally is to establish a martial arts community. And the people that have taught him, they're furious. A Chinese man teaching Kung Fu to outsiders. So they send a fighter to challenge him. And if he loses, he has to shut down the school. He accepts the challenge and he wins. But the fight takes too long. 3 minutes, he's winded, he's frustrated, not because he's lost, because he won using a system that failed him. So he does something that nobody accepts. He changes, he course corrects, he abandons everything. The style that he practiced, which was Wing Chun, when he was 13, the foundation of everything that he knew, he gone out the window. He starts over. He studies boxing, fencing, wrestling, judo. He takes what works from each of them and discard what doesn't. He's learning. He's in this process of iteration. And he builds something that has no fixed form, something that adapts to the opponent, to the moment, to the environment. And he calls it Jeet Kune Do. And it's the core philosophy, one line that he kind of summarizes it all up in. And he says, be water, my friend. And this man's name is Bruce Lee. And most people hear that, it means that relax or go easy or let things happen. That's not what he means. Water is one of the most powerful forces on planet Earth. It carves the canyons, it reshapes coastlines, it can level cities, but it never fights its container. It always fills it, right? It finds cracks, it adapts to whatever shape that it's given, and it moves through it. So Bruce Lee didn't tell you to be passive. He told you to stop forcing. So the hardest habit that I see for business owners to break is forcing a work ethic. Feels like dedication. You tell yourself that you're being persistent when you're just being stubborn. Felix Dennis, who wrote the book, How to Get Rich, he built an entire publishing empire, lost everything, and then rebuilt it. He says, stubbornness implies that you intend to persist despite plentiful evidence that you should not. A persistent person is convinced that he has been right all along and the proof lies just around the corner. He goes on to say, don't be afraid to change tracks, alter your course, or make new plans, especially if you sense that you are on the wrong track. Quitting is not dishonorable. Quitting when you believe you can still succeed is. So there's a difference between the two. Cunningham calls it the risk of rigidity. And I wrote something in 2025 that I want to share with you guys. Over-intellectualizing faith, purpose, or meaning can become another way to avoid surrender and trust. You're not pushing because you believe in the plan. You're pushing because you can't sit with uncertainty. Uncertainty is the worst thing that most business owners are at tolerating. And as you get better and as you season in entrepreneurship, you're able to sit with uncertainty, let team members fail so they can catch up. If a marketing campaign doesn't work or an offer doesn't work, that's okay. You just pivot. You flow rather than trying to force something. So flow doesn't mean letting go of the wheel. It means stop driving into walls and calling it dedication. 65% of businesses don't fail due to bad ideas. They fail because of the unexamined habits that are running on autopilot for the founder. The question isn't whether you have these patterns, it's which one are you running right now?